Hey, what's up YouTube? Today we're going to be installing a winter tire and wheel setup on this 2015 B8.5 S4. I'll go over the specific winter tire and wheel setup for you. Just so you know, it'll fit the B8 and the B8.5. TireRack does give you some lug nuts to go along with the wheel setup. We're going to use the stock jack under here. Unscrew the spare, which was already kind of loose. Pull the spare out. Then inside here, you just take this cover out. The way I'm doing this, you don't need an aftermarket jack. We're gonna literally use the stock jack on the jacking points. As a side note, don't forget to check the tire pressure on your spare. So what we'll need is this, the jack, and the handle for it, and that's it. Just these two. You want to do three things before you get started. Put it in first gear, parking brake on, and the third thing is grabbing yourself a chalk block and putting that on the back of the rear tire. Snug that up. Before we jack it up, we're going to want to loosen the wheel bolts on the ground. We'll do that via a 17mm 6-point socket. It's important that it's 6-point, not 12-point, because you don't want it to slip. You can use a breaker bar to do this, a normal ratchet, or you could use something like this, which just makes your life a whole lot easier. It's an impact gun. It has saved me so much time over the years. It's one of my favorite tools, one of my favorite purchases. This spins the nut from the center of it. So a lot of times people will strip their wheel bolts or their lug nuts, and it'll be because they're not using a tool like this. This and an air impact wrench is what you'll see at most tire shops, most dealerships. And the reason they do that is because of how it removes that wheel bolt or lug nut via the center of this and not on an angle with a ratchet. I hope that helps explain things. So we're gonna loosen these wheel bolts, not remove them, just loosen them a little bit so that while the wheel is up in the air, it is easy to remove without spinning that wheel. The spot where the jack goes is right by this arrow. So if you got a little dirt there, you gotta brush it away to see where that arrow is, but it is right here. It's a physical indentation, you can feel it. And we're gonna put the jack behind it on this rail here. The way this jack works is you have this knob on the back that allows you to easily make it rise. And then this piece here, this piece that we pulled out of the trunk, this goes inside there, and it seems pretty loose. It doesn't seem right that this would go in there, but it does, and that's what turns this knob once it gets to a point where you can no longer turn it with your hand because you're now pushing up on the weight of the vehicle. You want the knob to be on the outside of the vehicle, so you want to match the jack up with that arrow and then turn that knob until you can no longer turn it by hand. Let me bring you in here so you can see exactly where we are. That's where you want to be. And once it gets too difficult to turn this knob, you want to get that bar in there to have it turn it for you. This piece in, just like that. Set it up like this so that you're turning it with the handle clockwise, obviously. And we want to raise the wheel just enough so that it clears the ground just by a little bit. We want to make sure we can slide the new wheel and tire on without issue. And the way I ordered it, the diameter is slightly smaller than the overall size of this wheel and tire setup. Now you can take your impact wrench and remove all those wheel bolts. If the wheel is on there pretty good with the bolts out, it's okay to give the wheel a couple light taps to free it. Go. Always a good idea when you have the tire off to check and see if there are any nails, any screws, because now's an easy time to go ahead and plug them. It's also a good time to get in here, not underneath the brake, but just to get in here to see, make sure all your suspension components look good. You can check the brake pad thickness as well while you're in here. See how that looks. I did some modified brake cooling in here. I made some nacoducts on the belly pan that shot air right through this hole. Then onto this, which is a Porsche Macan part. And then I would cool the brake, back of the brake right there, and I remove the splash shields as well. Cool little mod if you're interested in doing something like that. Check out Chris Dungeon on Instagram. That's my handle. Got a couple pictures of the belly pan work. Just a side note, one of the weakest points of this car on the racetrack are the brakes, and you can see, even just trying to rub off the dirt, it's all faded, just I think because of how hot they got on the track. It's time to grab your new wheel and tire. Satisfyingly remove that sticker. With this specific wheel and tire, you have this little important message from TireRack. They're basically noting that, hey, there's a center ring on here, and when you remove this wheel, that center ring might stay on. And now's a good time as well if you want to pop those caps off and put your own on. I'm not sure if the Audi one will fit. It's gray, so I'm just going to leave it on the wheel. The black kind of goes more with the scheme of the wheel. You'll want to hand thread these in because you don't want to strip them. I take a little breaker bar here and I just snug these up in a star pattern. We're not looking to tighten them down yet. We just want to snug them up, because when we put the wheel on the ground, that's when we're going to take our torque wrench and torque these to factory settings. Just snug them up in a star pattern. Lower off of the jack. You can repeat this on the other side, and I'm going to bring you over here. You can see when you do it for the rear, you're going to want to find that little indentation again, and it's right there. So you see how far we are from the wheel, and that's where the indentation is. Now this is probably the most important part. Grab yourself a torque wrench and set it to 90 pound-feet. And tighten the lug bolts in a star pattern. You'll want to recheck them after 50 miles because they do tend to loosen up a little bit. Check your tire pressures, obviously. And with new tires in general, you want to put about 500 miles on them before all the mold release is gone. So if you're putting these on a little on the early side, don't worry about it, because you want to get rid of that mold release before you're actually using them in the snow or on the ice. I think that's pretty much it. I'm going to finish up here. Thanks for watching, and I hope this video helped you out. more these wheels stick out in the wheel well compared to the stock ones. So to me, the stock ones sit in a bit more than those. I think the back spacing, the offset favors really filling out. I think it fills out that wheel well a lot better. These are the stock Black Optics wheels that came on it, which I always thought were just okay, but this totally changes the look. Everything looks so mean right now. I took these covers off of the wheel bolts from the original Black Optics wheels, and I put them on here, and I think they match pretty well. If you have those wheels, put those caps on. If not, I have a link in the description to similar caps that you can use. They're super cheap on Amazon. Check them out. And thanks again for watching. I'll catch you guys in the next one.